All right, we're going to get started for all the people in the Zoomverse. Today we have Alan Hinsey from LCI, aka Tidewater, and he'll be giving his presentation on most of the data that they've gathered so far. So I'll leave it to you, Alan. Take it away.
Okay, good. Thanks for having me. I know. So we're going to do two things today. I'm going to walk you through some of the initial stuff from the report that we're getting in, and I'll explain what the stage where we are, what the status is with that report, and what the next steps are. And then also with the RFI, is okay if I ask some questions about that during this period as well? Okay, I don't have many, just a couple cleanup things that I need to talk about. So first of all, thanks for having me. This is great. So can everybody, I got some maps up on the screen. Can you see those? I'm gonna take that as a yes. Okay, good. So what I want to do is, so we, as you know, we have partnered with the town of Newcastle and Damariscotta to have a study completed, which was really is a 100% fiber to the home analysis for both towns. And we contracted with Casco Bay Advisors to do that. You may know Brian Lippold. I don't know if any of you know him at all. He's very prominent figure in the broadband community in Maine, doing a lot of work for a lot of areas, a lot of towns, a lot of regions. So, and we've done several studies with him already. And also subcontracting part of that work out to Vetro Mapping, also another kind of significant player in Maine in terms of the mapping and network system mapping and GIS stuff that everybody needs to really put this information together so you can actually do some engineering and planning and costing out. So that's kind of where we are with this, really pulling all that together. So we'd hope to have the study done sooner than this. Frankly, everybody's up to their eyeballs and stuff in work right now, and it's taken a little bit longer. But last Friday, as a matter of fact, it was on Friday, we did get the first draft of the report from Brian Lippold and Casco Bay Advisors. So we've quickly been kind of pouring over it, and I can share some of that information with you today. It's not the full report. That'll be coming soon. What happens when we get the reports from Brian, then we sit down with our engineers, our in-house engineers. We pour through it road by road, making sure that it's consistent with our network, the information that we have, and then start drilling down a little bit deeper in terms of more specific network design issues that is going to drive all the cost issues. So then it gets down to, then that information I can build into the spreadsheet that starts laying out, here's the cost, and then coming back with the pricing for everybody to look at. So what I want to show you today is some of the high level mapping features. So I think it's going to be instructive, I hope, to you guys to understand kind of where you're at. Okay. And you may already know this, but if you do, this will confirm it for you, I think. So on the map, you can see, I've got obviously Damariscotta over here, Newcastle over here. I didn't realize until I started looking at this, how much more space you guys got over there. That explains a lot of the cost issues over there. Anyhow, so it's a big, I didn't notice that until I started focusing in on this. What I'm going to do is I've got all the kind of material up there now that I'm going to be talking about, and all this pretty colors for all the different roads. And I'm going to show you what those mean one at a time. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with Newcastle. And then I'm also, once I'm done kind of walking you through the map, then I'm going to put up a couple spreadsheets just to show you. These colors codings will make sense when you see the spreadsheets because they are also the same colors. So, okay, it'll make a little more sense once you see it that way. And you'll get used to using that data going forward. So I'm going to take off, let's see, let's start it this way. I'm going to walk you through it and I'm going to build it up for you, okay? So first of all, you all know Newcastle, right? Everyone knows the town lines, right? You all know where the town boundaries are. And there's one part in this corner down below here, right here, as you can see, where that red box is, a red zone. That we point that out because it is not a part of our Tidewater Telecom area, okay? So all of Damariscotta is within the Tidewater Telecom ILEC, our incumbent local exchange area, okay? And everything but that small red piece in the whatever corner that is of Newcastle is in our ILEC as well, in the Tidewater Telephone Company area. That small area down there is in Consolidated. So that's CCI. Okay. So there are a number of homes down there, obviously, that are in that. We'll talk about those in a moment too. All right. So let's start with, let's turn on everything that already has fiber or cable sitting in front of them right now. And the reason we do that is because anybody that has, starting as a starting point, anybody that has our fiber in front of them, or they've got Spectrum cable in front of them, they are technically served by the standards that are in place now for Connect Main in particular, okay? And that's 50 by 10. So 50 megabits down, 10 megabits up, okay? Everybody, you guys, we're all kind of agreeing with that, I think. I see heads nodding here that that's the standard we've all been working with. So let's see. So fiber and cable. Okay, so that's the yellow lines. So right there, you can get a sense of, in Newcastle, anybody who has a house or a business, whoops, sorry, went the wrong way. Back up, back. Sorry, I make you dizzy. Anybody has a house or a business along any of those roadways are considered to be a served address, okay? The addresses we use for this too, by the way, and this gets complicated, but we just simply start with, at this point, basically E911 addresses, okay, from the state. So, and we know that then they don't necessarily match up completely with the town tax maps and things like that. So there's always that kind of piece where once we get down into more and more detail of this, especially in the implementation phase of a project, then we really want to make sure that we've captured all the addresses that are there, working with the town. What did we miss? We look at our own customer database, build all that in there too, and make sure they cross-reference as best we can. And then we try to filter out the duplicates. And that really gives us a good database. But this is the starting point, the E911 addresses. So the yellow, just to give you a sense of that, that is where right now would be considered served. The next part of served are what we're calling the fiber but uncabled. These are just little orange ones, okay? You can see them here. And what that means is in the yellow, the yellow is composed of the Tidewater fiber there, and also Spectrum cable is there, okay? The orange is just, there is no Spectrum cable there, that's just our fiber is there. So they also, obviously, if there's fiber in front of them, they're served. And there's kind of like 3 areas, I believe, 1, 2, over here. Whoops, sorry. Come on. It's hard to look at 2 different screens. Yeah, this one. And then also a small area over here. Okay. So I'm going to build in the next layer. The next one then is, let's look at everything that's cabled, that is Spectrum cable. Okay, boom, that's the blue. So you can see as we're building out, this is Newcastle building out, the yellow is served, it's either got fiber or cable. The orange is served, it just has our fiber. And the blue is served also because it has coax cable in front of it, in front of those households. So you can start to get a sense of, let me make this a little bit smaller, you can see. Whoops, sorry, here we go. So you're starting to get a sense of kind of what's covered and what's not, all right? That leaves us, now we're down to what's not covered, okay? And this is kind of part of everything that you see here in yellow, blue, and orange does not qualify for Connect Main grant funding, okay? If there are households there that are unserved, are not connected rather, there's no Connect Main funding for that because they are above that 50 by 10. They're either at or above the 50 by 10 standard, okay? So now we'll add in the uncabled, and this is really anything that's uncabled basically is unserved at this point. So these are the green. You're going to see these small green ones, okay? Up in here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, okay? There we go. So you're going to see these smaller green areas, and they stand to reason when you think about it. Why are those unserved? Why did they get unserved? Well, they're the farthest ones out, which means they're the most costly to get to, and they're the most sparsely populated. That's why companies choose to make, that's how they make their business decision where to go and where not to go in terms on density, cost to build, et cetera. So, and we have all of those listed, and if I put in the overlay, we have every address for all of those. So we can slice and dice them in our spreadsheets so we know exactly where they are, who they are, by the locations, et cetera. So for purposes of planning. But these are, we have a lot of them up in this corner, in this area over here as well. And some further, for example, here, at the end of this run, there's an area there that's uncabled. Spectrum built out up to a point and stopped because there wasn't enough density to move forward for others. Apparently, once again, I don't know, but that's just what the study showed. And then down in the consolidated area, that little area that's out of our zone, there is a one small area there that is also uncabled, meaning there's no cable there. So it's either they can only get probably consolidated DSL is the highest level of service they can get. Okay. So that gives you the real quick overview for Newcastle. I'm going to stop there and just before I go on to Damariscotta and ask if there are any questions about that. And I know it's hard to see from, you know, and I will give, once we get this ready to be distributed, I will give you copies of that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking at 215 just before you get to 213.
Up here.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the left there's a little blue, looks like a blue line going up. That's where I live. There's 3 houses up there. It looks like it's indicated that we're served, but.
In this area right here.
Right. Yeah, that's.
That not
But,
correct?
yeah, that's right. But we're not served from the standpoint, there's no cable coming up that road. There is down on 215, but we have to probably bring it over 1,000 feet up there to get any service at all.
So once again, I'd have to check with that's one of the things we do next is we go back and look at each one of these individually and also look for comment like that to help us go in and see them. We're relying on kind of our other consultants and vitro mapping, how they did that. So a lot of these, as you get into some of these smaller side tap ones, obviously, then the question then is, how do you decide if it's served or not served? Depends. If there are enough houses down that way, they should have, you know, here's what we do. If there's a side tap road and we're building our fiber out, typically if there are at least 3 houses down that road, we end up usually building down that we build down. If it's less than 3, then we have to say, it may not be worth it. Then it's going to be customer has to come up with some expense for that. So I'm not sure how that one was decided to be shown as a Spectrum having their cable already in place there. So what's the road exactly?
It's Grace Lily Lane.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Grace Lily Lane.
Okay.
I think you can see it there. Yeah.
Oh, yep, I see it. Yep. Thank you. No cable. And that's what's going to happen next is we start getting into more of the information and we actually get out for public review too. And these things will start to pop up.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. So if that's the case, if that's the case, we verify that then becomes green because I'm pretty sure we don't have fiber there. I know we don't have fiber there. So that would become one of those green unserved. Yes.
Hey, Alan, Tim McKinney, could you go up north of there, the same place over on Milliken Island?
Milliken.
Off of 213. I saw a lot of blue there, green, I'm sorry. Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it.
And this is a great example of one too. And not all unserved are equal. Some unserved cost a lot more. Your unserved costs a lot more. That is all direct. If I remember correctly, I think that's all direct buried. It has copper DSL there now. Okay. And I think it was direct buried. And what direct buried means, if you don't know, it means it's just literally what it sounds like. A trench was dug and that copper wire was just laid down in there and put out. It's cheap, fast, easy, and it works fine for that copper. For us to be able to bring fiber in there, there would have to be significant trenching and conduit work that would have to be done. There's a lot of cost that goes along with that as well, obviously. So then that's another thing then in terms of looking at these larger complete town build outs, fiber to the home for everybody. What does that mean? Who bears the brunt of that cost? How do we factor that in, et cetera? So those are some of those next steps that have to be decided. So the first step is making sure we have it in an accessible route to get to that. And then it is for those subdivisions in particular, how do we get it in there? And my guess is you probably don't want poles. So it's going to be an underground, some type of underground service.
Alan, this is David Levesque. I was wondering, in the blue lines, where you have spectrum that is high speed, is there Tidewater infrastructure though on there? It's just not fiber?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Copper.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you're in all those areas as well, though.
Yeah. We have copper on every pole throughout all of Newcastle, except for that little corner down in the bottom, which is Consolidated's telephone company area. So yeah, so for us to be able to put our fiber on there, it's relatively easy. All things considered, it's cheaper, easier than if a different company were coming in. Our copper's already there. We can overlash right onto that. We have strand on those poles, so it's cheaper, faster for the incumbent to be able to kind of get their fiber up there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Can you clarify, so for Milliken Island Road,
Yep,
there are utility poles in there?
there are.
Yes.
Okay, so I didn't know
Um,
for sure. I know our engineers have looked at that in the past couple of years. Yeah.
not around, maybe to some of the homes, but not.
Okay.
to the residents. So,
Well, that's good. I mean, and there's another
yes, there are
one.
utility poles on Milliken Island Road. So what you're saying is then you can wrap the fiber.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. If there are pole lines along that, then we already have our copper on those poles. And then it might just be maybe it's in some of those other areas that,
And-
Just to
and
the homes
Most
themselves.
of the residents, as far as I know, have Tidewater
Mhm.
Telecom
Yep,
for their phone provider.
right. Okay. Other questions on this? Oops, let me shut that off, sorry. Right. Okay, I'm gonna, if there are no other questions on that right now, I'm gonna go do Damariscotta, okay? Is that all right? Yes, we're good. And then we'll put up some spreadsheets so you get a sense of that too. The other thing I want to show you while I have time is once I get through that and then the spreadsheets that show what our next step is. I also then want to put up, I'm going to share a copy of, I think I've got it, of a scoring spreadsheet, sample scoring spreadsheet for Connect Main grants. So you get a sense of that too, because all this will make more sense once you start seeing how the scoring works to get the funding for it. Okay. Damariscotta, same way. So we're going to start with, let's look at the yellow. Let's see where we have fiber and cable now. Let's get this up here. So that's kind of where that is. Oh, gosh darn it. Come on there. There we go. So that gives you a sense of kind of obviously those, you can really see where it's at. That's hugging Route 1, that whole kind of area there, downtown, all along that and going out 129. So that's the primary route for that. Next, I'm going to show you where there is fiber, but no cable. Okay. And that's going to be those orange areas again, where you will see examples of where we built off and have our fiber going in certain areas, but there is no coax cable in that area. So you're going to see some of those, once again, some smaller areas. All right. The next one we're going to show you then is, oh, wait a minute, there's one more I got to click on. That's also our, oh, wrong one, sorry. I'm going to show you where there is the spectrum cable, and there's the blue. So they're also, once again, remember, they're also in the yellow because there's cable in the yellow along with our fiber, and then all of the yellow is either fiber or cable covered. The orange is just our fiber, and those are served, and the blue is just spectrum, and that's also served. So right now you're looking at kind of where there's yellow, blue, and orange in Damariscotta. Those are technically served roads and houses and businesses along those roads by Connect Main standard. Now, going forward, I'm going to show you the unserved. So once again, it's the green, and it's these green areas. You can see them. So you can kind of see them here coming off of some of those roads, off of the, was this Egypt Road back here? So you're going to see the ones you're going to know where they are, right? So once again, harder to get to, longer runs, fewer customers. Just, it's one of those obvious. If you were running the company, that's what yours would look like too for a while until it's time so you can make the effort and find the funding to build it and do it in a way that makes sense for everybody. So that's the ones that we'd be focusing on in Damariscotta when it comes to Connect Main. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let people ask me questions about that.
So the blue, they have the copper wire DSL available.
They do. Once again, same thing. And yeah, exactly. In Damariscotta, we have our copper on every pole. So and fiber on lots of it as well now too, of course. So yeah, we have a presence everywhere throughout Damariscotta.
So everywhere there except the green can get 5010?
That's correct.
I think there's quite a few smaller roads that are.
Right, that's that. A lot of those kind of, once again, those side tap ones that come off and they're smaller, then those have to be individual decisions made on those, you know. And that's why when I use the term, and you'll hear me, and I'm not trying to be too cute or clever with it, but I try to consistently use the term when I'm working with communities. And then it's a matter of working with each individual community to define what that means. The term I use is 100% fiber to the home accessibility. And that what that means is just kind of when we use that term, that means we're on every major road and we're in front of every side tap that needs it. And if there are usually more than 3 homes down that side tap road, it will get colored to be built. Otherwise, then it's like, well, they have accessibility. If there's 1 or 2 down there, then there's a cost associated to that customer to get to them. Or there might be some other subsidy, but there's another cost associated with it.
Edmund's probably showed me this before, but I didn't think that we had that much coverage out on Egypt Road.
Yeah, it's the spectrum. Yeah.
There's a lot of little roads.
Okay.
Yep. See all this stuff.
The camp roads.
Mhm.
If you, I believe if you focus on the
Lower left.
Lower left, southwest corner of town, there's that loop right there. I believe that some customers in that Pine Ridge Road, I believe may have fiber as well.
In here?
Yes.
Could be. Once again, this may be somewhere there was some updating that didn't happen that needed to happen. And that maybe, I think it was Vitro, the boots on the ground doing this initial mapping. And that's where then we'll now look at it and sit down with our engineers and do it. Okay.
Is that whole neighborhood buried? I don't think it's full.
To my knowledge, I think it is buried.
And once again, that provides significant challenges. You know, that if it's a direct buried copper, that's, you know, there's not a lot for us to be able to do. We have to then work with the community to get in the conduit piece. All right, so that's, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Sure.
If there's an address, say on Route 129 or 130 or, you know, Biskie Road, but the house is a couple of thousand feet back from the road, what is the deal there? Do they have service? They have, I mean, is that classified as accessibility where they're going to pay for the run to the house?
Yep, they would be considered, if that was their private road, basically, right? Going to them, and they're the only place back there, and they're 1,000 or 1,500 feet back. Yeah, that they would be considered served. They would have accessibility already. In other words, then they would have to have that additional cost to bring it to their home. And the way that works right now with our pricing now, once again, that then becomes, once we start working with towns and working with the grants and the funding, then that's when the negotiation starts to happen too, and how we each town comes out a little bit differently, and we kind of work with towns to make it work. Part of that then is to say, so how do we do that? Right now with our typical installation, you get the first 250 feet as part of your standard installation. Then anything beyond that 250 feet, if it's aerial, it's $1 a foot aerial. So if you were 1,000 feet back, obviously that's another $750 to get that to your home. If it's aerial, if it's underground, it's basically $2 a foot. So it's double that, pulling it through conduit. Okay. And it's the customer's responsibility to install the conduit. So that's where there is some additional, we call that aid to construction, that has to happen from somebody, customer, or if there may be other ways to supplement that. That's where we have to start looking at all the details and working with towns. And we've had some success working with broadband committees coming up with creative and innovative ways to cover some of those costs or make them cheaper. We've had some success with that at the Bremen. We're doing some of that now in Hope and Appleton too. Frankly, they're starting to look at some of their ARPA money as well. Is there something we can do with that for subsidy piece, for those kind of, especially some of those things where maybe it's an income-based issue, or maybe it's just where you've got a group that needs to be subsidized because the cost just for the conduit is going to be so prohibitive. You know, those are things that communities have to think about. And luckily there's some funding and maybe some additional, I don't know yet, that may help with that. So what I'd like to do now, and I'm just jumping anytime you got a question, but what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and put up these spreadsheets just to give you a sense of what kind of comes next. Okay, so we're going to go back to, now we got Damariscotta up there. Let's start with Damariscotta. We'll stick with them. Oh, what did I do wrong? You are screen sharing. Yeah. Will somebody help me?
You are,
I want to do
you are
it.
showing an application, not your whole screen. So go back to
Oh.
screen sharing.
Yeah.
You can just stop sharing and
Oh,
reshare.
okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. I knew that. Let's see. Where did I put? Oh. Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure that. Is that going to be?
Go back to Zoom. Yeah, click on screen share,
Hmm.
share screen,
Yeah.
click on it,
Yeah.
and then
Ah,
choose,
There we go. Well, there we
yeah,
go.
there you go.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. So this one, I just lied. I'm going to go Newcastle first. I'll do that a lot. So this is a kind of an example of how we start working with this, and we start filling in the blanks and the dots, and there are actually numbers behind that blue that I can't show you yet. Okay. And what this does is we start laying it out, obviously by those colors. Remember the yellow, orange, blue, etc. And so we start looking at the miles that are involved there, the fiber miles that are involved, how many potential subscribers that are there. And then we start, the next thing is to move down that spreadsheet and looking at the number of subscribers and then making a prediction based on those, how many new subscribers we believe, what the take rate is going to be, the market share for those. So typically what we've been using as we start kind of doing this initial phase of costing out a major project like this is to say if there's existing fiber there and if there's cable television there, also obviously, and then we build fiber in front of them, or to overbuild is that's the term you'll hear usually also. We'd be overbuilding where spectrum is. If we did fiber, if we were the fiber provider, then we typically say that's about a 40% take rate. You know, when we work with towns a lot, they say, oh, no, you're going to give it a much higher take rate than that. People really they want to get on the fiber. They want it. And I said, it takes a while. Changing is hard. It just is hard. It takes time. You got to do it. And it takes selling it and convincing people, making it available to them, that digital learning part. So we typically say that's going to be about a 40%. Where there's, whoops, see, look at that. I can't show you that. Don't look at that. Don't look at nothing behind the curtain. So other ones though, that when there is nothing existing, for example, where if we don't have any customers there and it's no other cable isn't there, typically, and the only other option for them is DSL, that's usually about an 80% take rate. So you can see in these areas here and also in the green, then we predict about an 80% take rate once we get there. So if we were actually serving those unserved areas, then that's a pretty easy take rate to achieve, I think. So you can kind of get a sense of how this works. We break it down by those, and then that's why it's important to go back through and with our engineers and verify every road, because it's going to determine how many fiber miles are there and how many customers fall into which columns exactly. For Connect Main grant piece, it's the green. Remember, it's all about the green. So think about it. You've got basically 92. What we're seeing right now, and we're going to go back and verify that, but based on this initial pass, they're saying in Newcastle, there are 92 unserved Connect Main qualified households, okay? And that covers about 6 miles of fiber build. So it's not a large number, okay, which that factors in, as you'll see in a minute, into the scoring spreadsheet too. You're going to lose some points there, okay? So that gives you an idea. And what we do, I will show you this. I'm not going to show you the numbers, but because I don't want you to get hooked on that yet. That's not the important part. But these pieces over here are how we start then pricing it out. As I mentioned, so once we know how many folks there really are, how many miles there really are, there are some formulas that we can use. Before we even do the more detailed engineering, the detailed engineering really happens more at the equipment at the central office level, where we really have to know how many ports and blades and all that kind of stuff. And a few others, the ones that are fiber on the poles, that's pretty easy to engineer, even from the 30,000 foot level, because we can know how many people there are. And our engineers can determine what fiber count is needed on each road, that kind of thing. It's that central office piece and pricing it out, and the prices are changing so quickly, and getting good estimates from our suppliers is the key. So one of the pricing we do is overlash only for construction per mile. So that gets back to that. Most of our stuff, as I mentioned, is going to be just overlash only for us. So it's relatively cheap. It's cheaper for us than most other companies because those are our poles. Basically, we're on those poles already. Okay. And places where Spectrum are too, they would be able to overlash onto theirs as well. So that where they are, they will have that same advantage. So that's one thing. There's a price per mile for that basically that we use. Okay. Then there's the strand and overlash where there is no, where you have to put up strand because you can't just overlash on something that's already there. That's a higher cost. For us, that's always it's going to be zeros in this chart for us because all of ours, we do have overlash because we have stuff on the poles already. Then we do we actually look at the poles per mile and the make ready cost on a pole per mile. Once again, in this case, because we're the incumbent, except for that little piece down in the corner of Newcastle, because we're the incumbent provider, there won't be any cost to us. We don't make ready is when a company has to come in and they have to literally make the poles ready to put their cable or fiber on that pole. So that means you have to move all the other stuff around and there's a cost associated with that. Anywhere up to $400 per pole, basically. So that starts to add up. About $400 per pole on the average. Depends, but in that range. The other one then is this next charge is really what we call I call it the pole to premise chart cost. Basically, once you've got all that fiber on, on the poles and the make ready is done, and you got to get it from the pole to the house. Okay. And that's, once again, we're working out the detail on that, but that includes that drop fiber, it includes the splicing and the snap at the pole. It includes attaching it to the house, the ONT, which is the optical network terminal device at the house. That's the most expensive part of the whole thing right there. And the electronics that go with that. And there's a cost per subscriber that we assign to that. And so we're collecting more information right now. In fact, we're updating our database so we make sure that we have really good cost estimates on what that real charge, what that real cost is, because that's a real driver that often gets missed. This other one is also what we add on too. This is the additional central office cost. We won't be building any new central offices here because we already have one in Damariscotta. And we have not a central office, but we have some major, I think, cabinets already in place in Newcastle. So we won't be building a whole new building, that kind of thing. That's where you get a lot of costs. There's about $100,000 just to put in a new building. And then all the stuff that goes with it, the electronics and et cetera, let alone all the materials, the equipment that goes inside for the distribution hub. So since we don't have to do that, there are costs though to expand, because once again, when we built it for the customers that we were serving. We weren't putting in enough to serve everybody. When we first started building out fiber, we didn't build out our central office and our fiber lines to do everybody. We did along those roads, but not everybody in the town. So we're going to have to add more ports and blades to be able to do that. So that's where that additional cost at the CO will come in, and it's substantial. The last ones are kind of, I assign a percentage basically to cover those things. We look at the total project cost up to that point, all those other things, and we give a percent for just to cover administrative and legal costs. Project inspection fees, that's something we used to never think about. The new funding, even the Connect Main funding, and now especially into the new federal funding that's really going to be becoming even more available, has many more post-build inspection costs that are associated with it. And typically it's best to just hire independents to come in and do that piece for you, do the inspection that will verify that we did it, that the provider did it as they were contracted to do with the provisions of the grant. So that checks that federal box. So there's cost associated with that. Engineering fees, that's pretty standard. That just is something people understand, I think. What you're seeing now, this is very high level engineering, obviously. Even the next place down, and that's kind of what you're talking about in your RFI, is how would you do that real design piece, right? That's the next piece of this thing. So there's an engineering fee with that, and then we just throw in an additional contingency part. As you look at this, this is the whole thing down here, obviously, is getting down to that total. And so in the green part, we'll be able to see the total. Yep, if we were just going for Connect Main money, it's going to be this many customers, and we'd be able to add up all those costs, and it's going to be about X to build to those unserved customers. And then we'll also be, if we were making projections for then fiber to the home for everyone 100%. So it's going to be all of the blue as well. So it's going to be all the blue, that's where we'd be overbuilding spectrum, where we don't have fiber now, and all of the green where there's currently completely unserved. Those columns then is what would total up to decide what the total cost of the project is. Okay, and then we'd have a total for Newcastle, we'd have a total for Damariscotta, And then it's a matter of finding what is available in terms of Connect Main funding, for example, for those unfunded, unserved ones and other things. And then working with communities to say, you know, the real question at that point is, how do you want to do this? I guess the question is, if you'd selected, for example, you say, yeah, we like this, we selected you, we want you to be our provider, we like the way we're doing this, we agree with how your design concepts, et cetera, all that stuff we're agreed on. Then it gets down to, and we all see that total. I like to get the sticker shock over early. And that's why as soon as I can, I'm going to take that blue off as soon as we're confident that we've got the right numbers built in for the mileage and all that stuff. So communities can see, yep, yeah, we're talking 1 million. Okay. So, and we know we can get this many hundreds of thousands in Connect Main or other federal funds. That leaves 950, you know, how are we going to do that? How do we do that? We as a company, obviously, our goal all along, anywhere where our footprint is, and especially where we're the telephone company, is to help those communities and become 100% fiber to the home. Kind of my motto is first one with fiber on the pole wins. I mean, it's the future. Let's do it. And so we want to do that. However, said that, we're a company, the small company, doing as best we can. And then we want to figure out how to invest. We can only invest so much of our capital every year. We have our own capital. We borrow money. We're doing millions of dollars of investment a year as we're building out. And the company hopefully you've been seeing, we've been busy. So we're building out, and some of it's grant, but it's also hundreds of thousands and up to millions of dollars per year in our own capital. So then it becomes a question of how fast does the community want to go? We want this done quickly. Then it's a matter of great. How do we partner together to fund this thing? Is it through resources that you as a community have? Is it other grants that are out there that are available that we can secure together, et cetera? Okay. Then it gets down to what's the appetite of a community and for funding that with us jointly. And then also what's the appetite of a community in terms of what their need is in terms of speed to get that done. So that's where I mentioned that negotiation part, that's kind of that next step that happens with communities. And then it becomes a negotiation, and you've got at least a two-way negotiation. If you're looking at it regionally, how does that make sense? Is it a better fit to do it regionally in terms of cost savings and efficiencies, et cetera, and helps us all get to there maybe sooner. So and also when we're done with this, when we go back through and we kind of scrub this information, get it cleaned up, our engineers say, yep, we found this, we found that, you missed that, you missed this. And we clear up our numbers, we plug it all in. You're in pretty good shape. What we've found, we've been very successful with these studies, then adding our own value to it from our engineers and what we can do and our costing. And we're in pretty good shape for the Connect Main grant. That becomes the guts. That's the heart of your Connect Main grant right there. Boom. I mean, obviously you got all the other stuff that needs to be done, all the other stuff working with the community and the committees and all that stuff. But in terms of the actual kind of basic engineering, high level engineering for those unserved, you've got the information you need to pretty much apply.
Alan, this is David Levesque. Can you take a couple questions?
Sure, absolutely.
So my first question is those off to the left of the blue blackout, so to speak, is a number of factors. Would other providers have those same factors, or do they add other things in there that you do not?
Yeah, I can't speak for them. I can say this. Once again, the big thing is because we have a presence here and we're on every pole already, that our cost to get on that pole is probably cheaper than most anybody. So we should be able to beat everybody's price on that. Okay. Shame on us if we can't, for that matter, we're already there. So that is one thing that's going to be different. If you now Spectrum is here, so they can they're attached to some of those poles already as well. So they'll be able to get on some of those relatively cheap too. We're on every one. So that gives us a leg up, so to speak, on that. Another provider that might be coming in, they would have to get on those poles. The other part of it is we are using our own backhaul. So that's already factored in. We're not leasing something. We don't have to lease from First Light or any other company like that. We purchase our backhaul. We have a 3-legged redundant internet for all the communities that we cover in Maine. So we have 2 feeds coming in from Southern Maine, from the Boston area. And then we have one from Boston, one from New York, and we have one coming down from Halifax. So we've built our network in such a way that it's it's three-legged redundant so that anything that happens on any one of those routes, you don't go down. So that's one thing. If you're looking at other providers, they're going to have lease costs associated with leasing from other networks, and they may not have the same level of redundancy either. But so there are differences for sure. You'll want to, I highly encourage you to look at those. I don't know how the people do their formulas. I don't know if they build in certain amounts and fees. And once again, once we get down to the level where if we're selected to work with you, a lot of this stuff is proprietary information, obviously. And in fact, I'm asking that you don't share this right now. Obviously, this is for us, for our purposes. But if we're selected to work with you, and then this becomes the basis of a Connect Main Grant, obviously, then it's public information at that point. But when it's still in the competitive phase of this with our other companies, this still needs to be confidential.
Okay. Well, I think I hope we're comparing apples to apples if any other provider does decide to put any information in there. My next question is, you did mention doing an analysis for Newcastle, one for Damariscotta. Then you vaguely mentioned a regional approach. Would you be costing it out separately as a regional approach too? So we saw what advantages would come with that?
Yeah, we'd have to see that. Exactly. I mean, that's, for example, in regional, I guess we were just thinking of Newcastle and Damariscotta as the region.
Right.
As it stands now. So yeah, and once again, we just got this. So that would be the next step, is to say, sit down, and then it gets out of the sales guy's realm, me, and out of the engineer's realm, and it gets to the ownership realm. And once we've kind of done our work and we present it to the ownership, that's when they get to look at it and say, how do we want to, what are the efficiencies we want to do? Just like we say, each of the communities have an appetite where they want to go and how quickly they want to go. The owners do too. We have, we've got about 6 communities kind of lined up, and everybody's wants to get in, and we want to do them all. So it's a matter of how part of it is the owners have, the communities that are in their ILEC are going to come first, okay? The communities that are in their Tidewater and Lincolnville telephone companies now, that's always going to be first for them. So that's one thing for sure. But other than that, then they have to make that decision about how they want to approach it. And maybe there's cost efficiencies and discounts because it is as a region. It may make sense for them from an ownership business strategy for them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that was my long-winded answer, Dave, to say, the regional thing should have efficiencies.
Okay, great. And my last question would be is the piece with Consolidated, is it possible for Tidewater to do some type of relationship with them to get that area covered, or are providers segregated enough that we would have to deal with Consolidated to deal with that area?
Oh, in that area down there. No, I think we could do that. We have, once again, there's additional costs that go with that. So that's part of when we talk about the cost, then this one, actually, this is the only one. You'll see it up here in the Newcastle chart. It actually has unserved, and it also says unserved within the CCI territory.
Okay.
So there are 0.3 of a mile there that has to be built out to. Okay. And so that has a higher cost because they're not our poles. We're not on that pole. So that's how we have to do it. So we can get there. We have to do make ready. We work with Consolidated. We have to pay pole permits to get on there, et cetera. So yeah, it's absolutely, we would be the provider on those poles.
Okay. I think it would be important to at least include that in the discussion.
Oh yeah, we definitely will. If you want us to do that, and it depends on the communities. We've done this in different communities. It depended on the grants too. Some of the federal grants that we did, we couldn't take in where there's a corner of Appleton. It's just there are 43 people up there. And I hate that we weren't able to do that, but it wouldn't fit into the federal grant piece that we had because of the costing, because it did cost more and it was going to take longer because it took because of the make ready part, we had to get the fiber up in 2 months and we couldn't have gotten it done in that time. So we had to exclude them. So we definitely want to do, if that's the will of the communities, we definitely want to try to get them all in there.
Great, thank you.
Sure. I know we're running out of time, and I apologize because I've been long-winded. Can I show you real quick? I want to show you.
Larry has a question.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
At some point here, maybe not today, could you speak to the issue of how entertainment is going to enter into the economics of the take situation, you versus our cable friends?
Right. Entertainment, the video, the streaming video and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, can you, well, it isn't just streaming, which is certainly changing the picture, but
Mhm.
if you're trying to convert people who are already on cable, primarily for entertainment purposes, but now see the need for data, how do you
Right.
move them
Yeah.
onto your fiber environment?
I get your question.
What
Yeah, I
kind of
understand.
costs, what kind of
Yeah.
services of the kind that they're used to consuming, are you going to be able to offer at a competitive price?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And we do have our own, because of that, we're migrating our entire, we offer cable TV in Lincolnville and Hope, and we offer IPTV in other areas on it where we have our fiber. And we're migrating all of that to live streaming video product. That's our OpenView TV. So that is out there now. So every place where we have fiber, there we have this OpenView TV product that's available. And it's cable, basically, like live streaming. So it's a lot like if you're familiar with YouTube TV. You can get main local channels. You can get Nesson. You can get Boston sports. The things that are important. The Red Sox and the Celtics. Okay, you can get
But
that.
the content that people are used to, if you want, to convert them, are you going to be able to replicate most or all of that?
I'm sorry that I missed that first part, Mel.
The content, in other words, people are used to
Mhm.
certain kinds of content that they're pursuing, and are you going to be able to replicate that experience in your setup at a reasonable price?
That we can replicate most of it. I mean, we have about 50 channels, I think, that are in the standard, the tier 1 cable package, including the locals. So it's got a lot of the most popular cable channels. And then we have a tier 2 where you can purchase more. It's a bigger cable package. It's that standard kind of thing. The pricing, I got to say, it's difficult. We're a small company, and the way we buy our content is we're a part of the National Cable TV Consortium. Okay. And so it's a group of basically small companies like ours all across, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them around the country, but form this consortium to negotiate and buy cable channels. However, guess what? Spectrum and Comcast can get it a little bit cheaper than us. They got a little bit better buying power than we do.
Yes.
Okay. And Google, YouTube, also AKA Google, does as well. Okay. So that's just a flat out thing. Ours costs more. It just does. But once again, that's an option for folks who, if they want it, it's there. We made the effort to do that. It's a really great product, but cost is an issue. We think that's going to change over time anyhow, over the next, I can't predict. I've stopped trying to predict this fiber and what's happening out there now. I thought I knew. But we think that kind of that live streaming and kind of decoupling and more a la carte will really happen. There's more and more people have just moved to their own a la carte, where they're picking out all their own streaming services to get what they want anyhow. But frankly, the local channels, Nesson, I got to be honest with you, Nesson drives our cost. The Red Sox drive how much we have, and because we have to have them, and they got to be in a certain place in the lineup next to so-and-so, and it just is what it is. And it's a demand. People want it too. I want it, So, but that does have impact our costs. So that does hurt. So we're probably never going to be as competitive as a cable provider, typical that we're used to seeing. But as things move to more a la carte, people are doing more of their own live streaming based on all their other different streaming networks that are available. Fiber is the answer for that. Fiber, they're going to be able to stream everything they want and as much as they want. So that's part of the sales part too, is helping people convert to that.
Thank you.
Sure.
We're rolling into the last 10 minutes, so I was gonna have Alan ask whatever questions he has for the RFI that we put out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I had just a couple questions. So I'm going through this, trying to figure out how to get all this put together. One thing I wanted to ask a question on, it's on your page 4 of the RFI, just to make sure the project timeline. I just want to make sure I understand. The goal is to complete broadband to the communities as follows. Complete broadband communities. Select the broadband provider by December 30th. Right. complete engineering of the system with associated costs by 2 weeks after committee selection. Ouch. That's pretty fast. But I guess my question there is about what level of engineering are you expecting for that? Enough that you could, there's going to take a considerable amount of detailed engineering work to really, I don't know that can be done.
I think a lot of what you'll give us in the final report will satisfy the
Okay.
majority of what we're looking for
Got it.
in
Okay,
the
that's-
project timeline.
That answers my question, because that's, once you have that, understand, even once that's done, and in the final report, there's a line that says additional costs for more detailed design fees. So that's, okay, good. I just want to make sure we're.
Well, let me
in the
just,
same direction.
because I think we talked about this a little bit. I think it would be the engineering costs that you need to apply for the Connect Main grant. Does that make sense?
Okay,
In other words, we're not expecting to get under construction in 2 weeks.
right, okay. Yep, got it. Apply for, so you do definitely want to apply for Connect Main in this next round.
Mhm.
It's coming up, right?
Yep, right,
And when
correct.
funding is awarded, secure the remaining cost as required and authorize the project to start. So we're still talking, well, the funding, you're talking about when the funding is secured, the Connect Main funding?
Correct.
Okay. And then it's a matter
Should
of,
it fall short of what we
Yep.
would estimate or hope or what have you?
for the Connect Main. portion.
Correct.
Okay, got it. For the green.
Yes.
Answered. Okay, that makes, now I got it. Okay.
I have one question.
Sure.
We're having the selection of the broadband provided by the end of this month. Is the fact that your feasibility study is not going to be done probably by then going to affect those deadlines?
It's what, I'm sorry, I missed that first part of what's being done by the end of the month.
The fact that your feasibility study isn't completed today, will that affect?
The ability for the Connect Main stuff, oh, the
No,
deadline.
for our deadline to
Uh,
select by the end of the month.
By the end of the month, no, by the end of the month, that should be, I think, doable. The level, that's, since you clarified the level of engineering you needed, I think that's, yeah, that's doable. Yep. I was concerned about what level you wanted me to be able to do
Sure.
and commit to in this RFI. So now that we know that, we can do that. Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is then that we would be able to, in the RFI, give you some guarantee, well, that are written guarantees in the RFI that, yep, you will have the material you need to apply for the Connect Main for the unserved areas. If you so choose. Okay. On page 2, just when it talks about I'm sorry, on page, where is it? The business model. I guess I just had a question about the bill. I want to be clear.
Bottom of page
When
4.
we design this thing and we provide it to you, and it's going to be in our RFI as well, I just want to make sure everybody understands, we're not going to be designing something that could be, you could say, great, we want to buy your design. You can't do that. You can buy the whole thing. You can buy us as a company, but we're not designing for anybody else to use this to build a network. It's being designed specifically to be built off of our network. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We will, we're designing to be the ISP. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm stating it clearly or not, but.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, good. I just didn't want anybody to be surprised by that when they got the stuff. Page 7, just real quick. The rest of it's pretty standard stuff. Page 7, I'm just curious about in the design content, a few bullets down where it says comparison of pole attached in-ground and on-ground deployment. What is it? First of all, what's on-ground deployment? And second of all, what do you, comparison meaning, what do you mean by that? I guess just a little clarification on.
I think finished construction for people, what it would cost to get down certain driveways, and then buried. We can replace it, the term on ground with buried.
Oh, okay.
So for driveways that, as you mentioned earlier, that the roadway would be considered served, so then they would have to provide their own funds to run
Mhm.
fiber down their road,
Okay. Okay.
which I think you've already stated is
Yep.
typically 1 foot on the pole and 2 feet underground, $2
Correct.
a foot underground.
Yep. Yep, typically. Yep, that's right. Okay. All right, good. And page 8. Hmm,
Alan,
yeah, sure.
just back to what George was just saying, it's 1 foot in the air, 2 feet underground, plus the cost of burying the conduit, correct? And the,
Which is done by a third party or they handle themselves, correct?
Right.
You guys
Right.
Yeah,
bury
that's the
conduit
customer's
yourselves.
cost, correct.
because right now conduit is sky high in cost.
Yeah.
And you can't find contractors to do the work. So that's a significant additional add.
It is. Yep. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that, yeah, so we want to be clear about that going forward. And that's something, as, once again, how do we work with it together and working something out for that? We don't know yet.
Just for context, I recently did this on my property and the cost for trenching and conduit closes in on $20,000,
How long of a run?
360 feet.
Whoa. No way.
There was some tree removal as well,
Yeah,
so
okay.
a complicated situation. But when you say an inconsiderable cost,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
for many people unaffordable, right? It's prohibitive.
That's a lot.
We're running right up against 4
Okay.
o'clock. So if you've
Last one I had was
Yep.
on the completion dates. Including availability and then willingness after the completion date for community presentation. So that's, what is it?
page you're on.
I'm on the last page, page 8, just that last little section. Just to make sure I understood what you would be looking for. Proposed financial model, including availability and willingness after completion date. Oh, I know what I want to say. But I just want to say on that, yes, we're willing to do that. Once again, the financial model, if we're selected, that's when the rest of the negotiation happens, I think. That whole issue I was talking about, appetites of community. Yep, we got it selected. Then it's a matter of, once we get the total price tag out and we're all comfortable, yep, this is what it really is, then it is that. And so we'd be able to have those presentations, show what the price tag is, but completion dates are difficult because that's part of what has to be negotiated. Not only the commitment from towns and what the company's committing, but then also how to phase that in over. Is it a 2 year, 3 years? Or when do you want it? You want it done in 1 year, because there are different levels of cost associated with that. That's all I meant by that. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Thank you. Sorry.
Right up against the buzzer.
Oh.
All right, in that email I sent you guys with the meeting links, you'll see the separate meeting link for 4 o'clock. So we're gonna close this meeting and go to the other link.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. And I'm available for any other follow-up questions if you guys want to do that anytime.
I'll stick Alan's email in my next email to you guys for anybody that doesn't have it.
Super.
And see you in the other meeting. Just one moment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.